Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a marker review. This is the Daiso illustration markers. When I first heard about these, I had to rush right out and get them because I really love Daiso. It's like the only dollar store we have here in Singapore. Although everything is 2 Singapore dollars per item, it's still like a lot of fun to go there, and I actually think most of the items are actually pretty good quality. So when I heard they had alcohol-based markers, I rushed right out and tried to get as many as I could. From looking at the package, there are 2 markers in each package, and it looks like there are 10 packages altogether. So you can get 20 markers, it's 19 colors, and 1 colorless blender. So luckily I was able to pick up a whole set as far as I know. So that's what I'll be showing you today. So the marker itself is a black barrel. The plastic feels pretty good. It's a nice square shape, so it doesn't roll off the table too quickly. And the label is all printed on and feels really nice, feels durable. The cap is nice and secure, and the one side is a fine nib and the other side is a broad or chisel nib. The color is on both sides. They have the color on both sides of the cap as well as the name of the color on both sides of the cap, which is really convenient because no matter how you put it in your cup or whatever, you'll still be able to see the color really easily. And yeah, these just feel great. I'm really looking forward to trying these out for sure. One of the things I was most worried about though, because these are from the dollar store, I was worried about the quality for sure. I mean, I really like the quality of Daiso products in general, but I mean, it's still a dollar store, so they definitely don't have winners all the time. And although a lot of the stuff that tends to be really great is the stuff made in Japan, unfortunately these markers are made in China, so I was a little bit worried. Although I've heard a lot of great things about markers coming out of China recently, I still wasn't sure what to expect. When I first opened up the cap, I honestly thought that I would see like very fibrous nibs with like things sticking out or something. That's what my expectation was. So when I opened the cap for the first time and saw that the nibs look really nice, they're like, they don't have any imperfections, they look really good, they remind me of like just the Copic original nibs for sure. I was really surprised by that. I don't know if they're going to hold up forever. I don't know what they're made out of, so I don't know if they'll fray over time, but I used these markers for a good month and I didn't see any fraying or any like problems with the nibs at all. They still look brand new and they still work really well, so I was really happy with that. The ink itself looks a lot like the Copic ink. It's slightly patchy, just normal alcohol-based marker ink, so another plus there. And the colors are actually really nice. The other thing that I usually worry about when it comes to small sets from any marker brand is that the colors will be way too vibrant and very hard to use. I find really vibrant colors extremely hard to use. And I also worry there won't be very much variation. Maybe all the colors will be mid-tones or something. But for only 19 colors, they actually gave a pretty good amount of variation. They have those vibrant colors, they have mid-tones, they have dark tones, and they have nice light pastel-y type tones as well. A little darker than pastel, but still in that light area. So I was really looking forward to that. And I was really excited to see the pale orange especially is very much like a light peachy skin tone. So I was really looking forward to trying these out, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised. The color on the caps do compare really well to the color that comes out of the marker. I was also pleasantly surprised by that. Usually you expect to have quite a bit of variation, especially with cheaper markers. Of course, these aren't the cheapest markers you can get in the world, but they're still pretty inexpensive. But the color on the cap actually did represent the color in the marker pretty well. Only a few of them were slightly off, but it's actually only a slight bit. It wasn't like a huge variation like I've seen in the past. Even like some Copic markers have a bigger variation at times, so very impressed by that for sure. Since these markers have a chisel nib and a fine nib, I already knew that there was going to be some issues with blending, but I think the biggest issue with blending these markers was actually the color range. So I'm really happy with the variation of color they gave, but the problem is there's still only 19 colors, and there was quite a few steps in the color blending process that was missing. For example, they gave a light warm gray, a medium warm gray, and a dark warm gray in the set, but when you mix the 3 together, the dark and the medium colors do mix really well together and they blend really nicely together, but the light gray is just nowhere near the other two colors, so it just doesn't go well together at all, and it just ends up looking really kind of bad next to the other two. So not super happy with that. Also, the blending in general is a little bit different with these. It doesn't blend exactly like a Copic marker. It kind of just I guess bleeds together. I'm not sure how to describe it. It's just kind of mixes together until it all looks like one solid color instead of kind of a blend, but it still kind of works. It's just not as great. Another thing I better mention before I forget it is that these markers definitely have a smell. So if you are sensitive to smells, that is definitely something to keep note of. I personally don't feel like Copic markers have a very strong scent. Usually I don't notice the smell at all with my Copic markers. It's only kind of rare when I kind of like, wow, that does have a little bit of a smell, but it quickly goes away for me. I just don't notice it much. Same with like when I tried out the Pro markers, I noticed there was a smell just because it was different slightly from the Copic marker smell. So my brain kind of registered it for a little bit, and then it was like, meh. I didn't notice afterwards. But with these, there was definitely a much more prominent smell. I think if I was doing drawing for like a couple hours, it might start to bother me a little bit, but it wasn't as bad as like maybe a Sharpie marker would be, but definitely something to keep note of if you're really sensitive to that kind of thing. So for the drawings in this video, there are 3 speed paints because I did these marker reviews back in August, and I was also doing Aceo August at the time, which is where you draw a little Aceo drawing each day. And I had a lot of fun with that. I actually used these markers for all of the Aceo drawings that I did during that month, which I think was really useful because I was able to experiment with a bunch of different colors and get a feel for them, see how they work for different like various applications. For example, I wanted to try the darker colors for the skin tone. That's another complaint I have with the color range. The dark brown color and the medium warm gray are almost the same color, so it was a little frustrating. I wish there was a bit more variation there. And again, the light warm gray did not work well with the medium and the dark warm gray. So for her skin tone, I ended up using the medium warm gray and the dark warm gray. And I just had to kind of emphasize this shadow to bring out definition because the light color just wasn't working. In fact, I'm pretty sure I used the light color for her hair, so you can see how huge the difference between the two colors are. But I still think that this drawing came out really pretty, and I had a lot of fun with the different colors. The blending definitely is a little bit more difficult with these markers. I even found that if I pushed the blending too much and layered too much, I would get a lot more of a spotty looking color. But it's still a lot of fun to use, and if you just kind of keep the blending to like a minimum, wow, I can't say that word, or you do like kind of cell shading, like just heavy shading with just like lines instead of trying to blend it out, I think it's still fine, and it's a lot of fun to use for sure. I actually found myself liking these a lot more, which is kind of funny because when I first got into it, these were kind of a really inexpensive marker, and it's Daiso, so I definitely wanted to try them out, but I kind of expected that I'd probably use them a couple times and then just put them on my shelf and never touch them again, if I'm being 100% honest. But I actually had a lot of fun with these because like they're as good as any other alcohol-based marker. It's just that the blending is not as amazing, and the color range is really limited, but I still found myself really reaching for these for doing quick little small drawings in my sketchbook and stuff, because like they're just a lot of fun to just play around with. Like I think these would be great for a beginning artist who's not sure if they like markers yet, and also for anybody who maybe wants some travel markers but they don't want to spend too much money on them and they have a Daiso nearby. That's another big drawback for these markers, is you have to actually be in the area to go to Daiso. It's not available everywhere. Where I grew up in America on the East Coast, we didn't have Daiso. I'd never heard of it until I came to Singapore. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a limitation for sure. So as for the colors itself, I'll talk a bit more about how I use them. One of the other colors that really disappointed me was the pale orange, because it looks like a really nice peachy skin tone, and I was really excited to see this one in the set, so I was like, oh my gosh, they gave a peach skin tone, that's super rare. But when I swatched it out and when I tried to use it in drawings, I found it to be way too light. You can barely see it. I wish they had just gone like 3 or 4 shades deeper so we could actually see it on the paper. So because of that, I found myself trying to emphasize the shadows more to get more of a variation of color when I did use it for skin tone. I found that the purple color, which is the light purple, was not the best for shading for skin tone, and there wasn't really anything else that they gave me that would be good for skin tone. Like, I was at first really optimistic about the idea of the yellow ochre color, thinking that could be a good shading color or be a good skin tone, but I actually found that marker to be the least interesting. I wish I could like swap it out for something else. If I was in control of all 20 colors they gave, I would take this out and maybe give a, sorry, I just banged the table. Maybe give an in-between color between the light warm skin, light warm gray and the medium warm gray. Sorry if words are failing me. I would rather have that than this color because I just didn't find it super useful. So the colors that I usually went for a pale skin tone in the shadows was actually a mix of the water blue and the pink. I found those to mix better into a nicer purple than the light purple does. And it kind of gave like a opal-y feel to the skin tone, which is something that I had discovered from using the 12 set of pro markers before, and I find it to be useful again in this one. And again, the blending is definitely a bit different with this one. If you see the mermaid drawing that I'm drawing on the screen right now, I find that the light green and the dark green do blend well together, but it gets to a point where if you keep pushing it, the color starts to get very greeny looking, so it's not the most perfect, but it does kind of blend more well together than I would expect, especially using a chisel tip. And one other thing I forgot to mention before, which is something I really should have said way before in this video because I'm sure not everybody's still watching, but I was also surprised that these weren't streaky. So when I first was sitting down to open them up, like I'd said, I expected to see like really not great quality nibs, but the nibs were perfect, so I was like, wow, awesome. And I was kind of expecting to see really streaky ink quality, because it's something that I've seen people mention all the time with cheaper markers, and I've actually not bought any cheap markers in the past. I must have used them when I was a kid, but as an adult, this is actually the cheapest marker I've gone for. So I was kind of expecting for the ink to be streaky and not be something that I could control, but I found these to be just as smooth as any other marker I've used. The only nitpick I can really pick on is that the ink seems to get splotchy the more I blend. And I'm not even 100% sure that's the paper, but then again, I've used this paper with Copics and I haven't had that problem. So yeah, really I'm nitpicking to mention that part, but really impressed that the ink quality is not streaky. It lays flat on the paper really nicely, so that's really great. So for this last drawing, I'm just doing kind of a different skin tone. I wanted to do something more fantasy based, so I went with a pink skin tone. And what I mentioned about the blotchiness with blending, you can definitely see that in the skin tone with this one, because I was really unsure of what I wanted. At first I thought I would give her like white skin with like pink shadows, and I used my colorless blender, which actually did a pretty good job of smoothing those edges, so it did kind of look like it blended to the white. But then I didn't like it at the time, and I just kept going. Sometimes when you're watching back these videos, you're just like, why did you keep going? It looked fine. But yeah, I mean, even when I used to watch Bob Ross when I was a kid, I was always like, it looks fine, what are you doing? You ruined it. And then at the end, you're like, oh, actually, that looks really good. You know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, I apparently kept like layering on the pink. And in the end, I think it looked really good. I actually like how this card turned out. It's one of my favorites out of all the cards that I did. And if you want to see all the cards that I did, wait till the end, because I have a close-up of all the cards that I did in August with all of these markers. So you can see more variation of colors that I use. But yeah, I feel like I just went way off track of what I was talking about. But hopefully you understood and you followed along. And if you did, thumbs up to you. You're awesome. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. every so often. I really appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, like, I guess I'll just wrap it up and say I really like these markers. I think they're a good buy for the price, and if you live near Daiso, then definitely check it out. If I am being nicer and doing like a more organized ending, I would say I would recommend these markers. The downside is that you have to live near Daiso. That's a problem because I don't think they sell them online. And they are very limited in colors. There's only 19 colors, one colorless blender. I would hope that they come out with more in the future. Maybe if these did well, we'll see more. I've also heard that they're kind of hard to find now. I'm not sure if that's true. I actually didn't look for them last time I was in Daiso. I probably should have, so I could do like an updated, oh, we still have them or whatever. So that's definitely a downside. And the splotchiness when you over blend is a downside. But on the plus side, the nibs are good quality. The markers in general are really nice quality, especially for the price point. Don't expect like Copic marker quality, but they're still really nice. The colors are nice and varied, and they're a lot of fun to use. They're inexpensive enough that you can just bring them as a travel marker, something that maybe if you're flying, you're not going to worry so much if they explode, because sometimes markers do that, so maybe don't fly with them. Or if somebody like confiscates them while you're traveling, then it won't be the hugest deal. Or something that you can give to your kids or use in craft projects. I think they're great for all of those reasons. So yeah, I have a lot of fun with these. Like, I really expect it. Like I said before, I expected to use them a couple times and just put them in a drawer like I did with the Daiso watercolors. Sorry. But I actually find myself really liking these because, like, there's something about having an inexpensive marker that's like, I don't have to worry about using them. I can just use them for whatever I want, you know? So I've just kind of been having fun with these, using them for small little sketches, small little drawings, and things around the house even. I won't like kill somebody if they want a marker, and I can hand them this one like I would if they asked for a Copic marker to write on a package. I'd be like, no, what are you doing? It's an art product. You don't use it for that. But yeah, I really like them. I hope you guys like this art. I hope you like the drawings. If you'd like to, you can support me on Patreon. I actually gave quite a few of these little drawings to my patrons during September and October as a freebie with their gifts for the month for my patrons who bought the packages for prints and such. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, who knows, maybe that will happen again in the future. So definitely consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the description below. And also, exciting things coming up. Hopefully I can keep going with it. I've been having a lot of issues finishing things recently, so hopefully I'll get past that. And definitely check out my Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. You'll know what I'm talking about really soon, since December is coming up and that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, very vague ending. But thank you guys so much for watching, listening to me ramble. I hope you enjoyed the art. I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope it was helpful. If it was, definitely let me know. Leave me a comment down below, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel. All of that good stuff. Hopefully I remembered to say everything. If I didn't and you have a question, then definitely leave it below. I'll try to get to you as soon as I can with an answer if I can. And yeah, enough of my rambling. I'll stop here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.